Someone had pushed me so close to the edge that I knew I had to act fast before things got worse. This is my story. It all started when Karen, the almighty HOA president, dropped a letter in my mailbox with her smug signature stamped across the bottom. The paper claimed that starting the following week, the HOA board had been granted authority to inspect the contents of our mailboxes to ensure no harmful or disruptive materials entered the neighborhood. I stared at it like it was a prank. But no, this was Karen in full control freak mode. She was declaring herself the neighborhood mail police. I read that letter twice just to confirm I was not losing my mind. This was a straight-up privacy invasion. Who gave her the right to rifle through private mail? Since when did HOA politics extend into federal property? So the next morning I marched across the street to her house. Perfect lawn, trimmed hedges, garden gnome army positioned like soldiers on patrol. She opened the door with that fake sweet smile that spiked my blood pressure. I handed her the letter, demanded to know who approved this absurd rule, and waited for a reasonable answer. She did not give one. Drop a comment and tell me what state you are watching from, because I guarantee you have one of these people in your neighborhood right now. Karen crossed her arms, tilted her chin like a queen addressing a peasant, and said the rule had been passed for everyone's safety, and if I knew what was good for me, I would comply. I pressed her further, asking which board members actually signed off on this. She smirked and said that was confidential. HOA business. She wanted absolute control and expected the rest of us to roll over like obedient pets. I was not having it. I went door to door talking to neighbors. They were not okay with it, but they were scared. "It is easier if you just let her be," one neighbor whispered, glancing at Karen's house. Another sighed and said she fines anyone who speaks up. We were grown adults being bullied by a middle-aged dictator with too much free time. When the rule went into effect, I kept watch. Sure enough, I caught Karen doing her rounds like a nosy detective, lingering by the mailboxes, bending a little too long near one particular box. Mine. The sight of her hovering around my property sent rage through me. My mail was mine, not hers. I knew right then this circus had to end. If my neighbors would not act, I would do it myself. And not in some boring legal way. Karen needed to be stopped in a way she would never forget. That night I sat at my kitchen table sketching out possibilities. Locking the mailbox would get me a fine. Catching her on camera, she would spin it as neighborhood watch duty. No, this needed a sting. That is when I remembered my old buddy Marcus. He was in the beekeeping. The guy treated bees the way others treat dogs, completely calm, completely fearless. I called him and laid out the situation. "You want bees in your mailbox," he repeated, then chuckled. "That is insane, but honestly, it could work." Within an hour, he showed up with a small ventilated wooden box, the kind beekeepers use to transport swarms. Inside, I could hear the faint hum of wings. From the outside, it looked like an ordinary package. Perfect bait for a nosy neighbor. That night, I slid the box inside my mailbox. The beauty was simple. If anyone but Karen approached, I would intervene. I was not trying to hurt an innocent person, just expose the queen bee of the HOA to her own medicine. I adjusted my cameras to focus directly on the mailbox and waited. For 2 days, nothing happened. But on the third day, right before sunset, I spotted her floral dress bobbing across the street, clipboard in hand, sunglasses perched like she was on patrol. She paused at my mailbox, glanced around, crouched down, and pulled the door open. The moment her fingers lifted the flap, chaos erupted. A swarm burst out in a golden cloud, buzzing with fury. Before she could scream, they were on her. Karen shrieked so loudly I nearly dropped my coffee. She flailed, slapped at her hair, spun in circles, and stumbled into the street. The bees chased her like tiny heat-seeking missiles. My cameras caught everything in crisp high definition. Karen sprinted down the street with her arms flapping, giving the performance of her life. Every neighbor peeked outside, phones already recording. Her floral dress snagged on a hedge and ripped as she stumbled across a patch of grass. She finally collapsed on a neighbor's front lawn, panting, swollen, still slapping at her skin. While she kept wailing, I calmly called the postal inspector's office. I reported a trespasser tampering with my mailbox and explained I had video evidence ready. By the time Karen was sitting up with ice packs, a postal inspector's car rolled in. He reviewed my footage, watched the high-definition clip of Karen prying open my mailbox right before the swarm exploded in her face. Karen tried to argue. "He set me up," she shrieked. "He planted those bees. The inspector adjusted his glasses and said flatly, "Ma'am, the real issue is that you opened someone else's mailbox. That is federal mail tampering." Her mouth dropped open, stung into silence. The fine was $700. Her eyes went wide. I sipped my coffee from the porch like it was the most peaceful evening in history. If you are dealing with your own version of Karen, drop your story in the comments. These people count on you staying quiet. Hit that like button if justice showed up right on time.